This is a good one. The reason that it is really great to have a study buddy is because that person makes you feel guilty if you don't get the work done. That is why they are a very critical part of the studying process. Welcome back to my channel. For those who don't know, in the past 3 years, I've taken the Series 7, 79, and 63 all in the first try. I've also cleared the CFA Level 1 on my first try, and by the time you're watching this video, I will know the results of the CFA Level 2. We're all in this together. Let's get right down to it. In the description, I've listed out all of the pieces of advice, so you can go ahead and take a look and fast forward as you see fit. My first piece of advice is to watch your speed. If it's been 2 hours and I see myself reaching for my phone, I will take a break. I will stand up, I'll take a walk, and I know that that's really important for me so that I can come back and have a very concentrated study session. 2. Throughout my study sessions, I always keep something flavorful and sweet by my side. Generally, I always drink tea with honey. If you don't know already, honey takes a longer time to break down than regular crystal sugar or any artificial sweeteners, and it's a really good option if you want to maintain your energy levels. When I take a sip of my sweetened tea and the flavor and the sweetness, I see myself perk up and become more alert in order to keep my attention span intact. I feel like a lot of these you'll hear me talk about my attention span. 3. You will only really internalize something if you have to teach yourself. Something that I used to do is in the mornings I would take a walk for an hour and I would take one of my formula sheets and I would teach myself from it. So I would say, okay, Marta, what is net operating income? I don't know how much content you retain if you just read it and think about it, but saying it out loud back to yourself really helps. Pairing it with a walk also helps you get some exercise because we know there's not enough hours in the day. 4. Can you talk from key words? Something that I used to do is I used to write down just the word on a rolling notepad, and I would ask myself at the end of each day, do I know what each of those words mean? So for example, if you see the word carry trade, do you know what that means? Can you recall from the back of your head? Something that I have experienced in exams is sometimes you say, I've seen that. I think I know what it is. I totally forgot. What's that formula? And so the premise here is to bring it from the back of your mind. Sometimes when you read it, you think you know it, but it's not until you can actually say it without any prompting that you can actually solve the problem. So these kind of exercises really reinforce that you actually know the concept and you can say it without being prompted. This one is a sad one. Get the right materials from the start. For level 2, I was trying not to spend the full amount on the Schweizer materials, and so I spent half of my study time with the CFA Institute books and the other half of the time with the Schweizer books that I was able to finagle. However, when I got the Schweizer books, I realized they were honing in on really key problems and I didn't know how to solve them, or they weren't coming in my mind because it was so bogged up with everything I had read. The other thing is I was studying with one of my work colleagues. At our weekly catch-ups, I would tell her, oh my gosh, I didn't understand XYZ, so many things out of this one chapter. And she would say, I have no idea what you're talking about because they're not in the Kaplan book. I was really spending a lot of time and energy when I didn't have to be. So remember that your time is money, and when you are evaluating that price tag on the Schweizer materials, factor in these struggles and whether or not it's going to be worth it for you to redo half your study time when you finally get the materials. Other tidbits here, I never used the Secret Sauce book. I opened it and I read like 10 pages, but the real practice that I had was from all the books and the workshop books as well. Next, mix it up. Make sure you're hearing the same concept in different ways. There are some really amazing YouTube videos and there are some really droll, terrible, boring YouTube videos, so definitely find the right ones. I know I have watched a couple by Wiley. This man named Peter Olinto has the energy and enthusiasm to get me going about the pension benefit obligation. They only have a couple of videos and I'll link them in the description below, but the point here is to diversify how you hear the concept, because when people teach you something, they teach you in the way that they know how, and that's not necessarily the way that you learn. So you should go back and try to learn from different people and different sources in order for something to really crystallize. The other thing that I found, when you spend so many hours studying with the books, you don't necessarily want to keep going at night, but something that I used to do is I used to lay down in my bed, put my feet up, and then watch a couple of YouTube videos on some of the concepts that I wasn't clear on, like the carry trade and things like that. Quick point here on practice problems. Remember that the reason you are solving practice problems is so that you don't forget all the steps. This is especially critical for questions that have 8 or 9 or 10 steps. The point of redoing the practice problem is not to, oh, did I get it right? It's, did I get every single step? Which step do I usually forget? So that when you go to the exam and you take the test, you can say, okay, I've done it now. Did I miss anything? What do I usually get wrong? Use a little bit of critical thinking when evaluating whether or not you got the practice problems right or wrong. This is a good one. The reason that it is really great to have a study buddy is because that person makes you feel guilty if you don't get the work done. That is why they are a very critical part of the studying process. If you have any questions as you go through the studying process, you should literally Google it, find the videos on it, and figure it out. That's the whole purpose of self-independent study. That's what all these exams are about. But the real purpose of a study buddy is that when they say, hey, let's talk on Sunday about fixed income as we discussed, and you say, well, actually, I haven't been able to get through it, and they're like, oh, okay, I did. Do you see how bad that feels? You feel like you feel guilty, you feel like you're behind. All of that is really good, tough love, because you should be going through the content at that pace, because they are. And that kind of pacing is really important. I personally treated it as a personal vent session with a friend, and that was all that I needed, because that person wasn't going to help me improve my score. This one is about confidence. When you are taking advice or when you are comparing yourself to other people, you are responsible for knowing yourself, and you are actively taking decisions such as, do I sign up for the workshop or do I not? Do I do the Schwezer online word bank or do I do the CFA Institute online word bank? Those are real decisions that will have an impact on your exam, and you should know yourself. There will be a day of reckoning, that is the day of the CFA exam, and on that day of reckoning, you can decide whether or not you really knew yourself the way you thought you did. I won't spend too much time on that one, but the idea really is know why you're making the choices that you are and have confidence in them because you know yourself best. Getting to the finish line, things I didn't think about when I was first signed up for the CFA. In the last month of studying, you need to delegate other responsibilities, such as cooking food. I delegated it to apps like Seamless and Uber Eats. If you're in NYC, I recently made a video that I'll link in the description here about how I maximize the offers from these apps. One thing you should do if you haven't started already is to think about your CFA budget, and that's not just the exam and the test prep materials, but it's everything that you need on that last month to make sure you're studying. Imagine if you go to the exam and you say, I just needed like 5 more hours, I just needed 10 more hours because I forgot to review XYZ. My theory is that for everyone at the minimum passing score level, it's usually a matter of either a couple of hours or of getting the right sleep, confidence, whatever it is. Don't let a couple $100 in expenses for food be the difference between you acing the exam and having to take it again the next year and hating yourself for it. Very quickly, remind yourself that you want to know this material. Sometimes it just helps push you through. Last, these ones are about time. The first one is momentum. Do not put your test way into the future because then you won't take it seriously. When you are driving towards a test date, you are motivated, you're grinding, you're actually taking steps in order to improve yourself. Personally, I think the best time for booking a CFA exam is approximately 8 months out. That way you can spend the first 3 months literally mentally preparing. In 3 months, I'm gonna start spending all of my Friday evenings just with the books. In 4 months, my real study plan starts. I would definitely say get it done sooner rather than later and plan for big life events. I've seen a lot of really sad posts that say, I had kids and then I never got back. Of course, you can drop your exam, but this is not the kind of video that talks about that. This is the video that says, if you want to pass, this is what you should be thinking about. If you're family planning, if you're planning moves, vacations, weddings, whatever it is, just remember those big life events. And the other thing that I would say is that you have a really good mental clarity of the next maybe 8 months of your life. You don't have a good sense of where you're going to be in 3 years. That's why it's important to get it done early and put the pressure on yourself and get into that momentum. Guys, what were the results for CFA Level 2 like? Leave them in the comments. Let me know what part of the CFA process you are in, what level you are taking, what you thought of my advice. Definitely leave some comments and let's talk about how the exam went. We're gonna make it through. You better believe it.